Hey YouTube, Ethan here. In this video, we're comparing the full Rodriguez SPOM to the almighty Hydra. As you make the transition into mid-game, you'll be faced with a depleting algae stock, and you'll be forced into building an electrolyzer. The problem is that an electrolyzer on its own is hot and creates a mess of your base, allowing hydrogen to be pumped freely into the surrounding area that harms your duplicants with debuffs. So you'll need to create a room for it. This is where the SPOM and the Hydra come in. These are two popular designs that you can recreate to manage the heat and gas separation from the electrolyzer. So the question is, do you build the SPOM or the Hydra? I've gotten this question a handful of times on my stream, so I think it's time to explain the advantages to each in an in-depth guide. As usual, my videos are timestamped, so feel free to skip to whatever section that you need to, and don't forget to leave a rating on this video as this helps me out a lot, and subscribe for new videos and stream notifications. So let's get started. First of all, let's get the naming convention out of the way. A SPOM stands for Self-Powered Oxygen Maker, but it is typically used interchangeably when referring to a full Rodriguez oxygen maker setup, regardless if it's actually self-powered or if the extra hydrogen that you're creating is being used to feed power into the rest of your base. Typically, a Hydra is also a SPOM if the hydrogen that is created is used to self-power. Realistically, depending on the number of electrolyzers in your SPOM, it makes sense to feed the extra hydrogen into generators that help power your entire electrical grid. With this distinction clarified, I'm going to be using the word SPOM to talk about the full Rodriguez variation of a SPOM throughout this video. A SPOM has electrolyzers in free space, and its function relies solely on the natural separation of oxygen and hydrogen within the chambers where the gas pumps are located to pump out each substance as it comes to a rest after separation. It's much more beginner-friendly to set up than a Hydra, as you're just placing down buildings and turning them on. The chamber is also easy to modify, as you can leave provisions to include a liquid lock to get in and out if you wish, although this is not usually a requirement. The oxygen can be cooled locally inside of the SPOM by an aqua tuner located elsewhere, but space is usually limited if you follow this setup, so it might be worth sending your oxygen to a separate cooling chamber for it to be more efficient. This entire design is pretty easy to build by simply copy and pasting what you see here, or by checking out my SPOM video, which I'll link in the upper right hand corner of your screen. However, I'll show you the overlays to give you the gist of it. Here is the power, the liquid piping, the ventilation, the automation, metal overlay, gas overlay, and the temperature. Feel free to go back and pause and copy what you wish. The SPOM's uptime is limited by how fast you can remove the hydrogen and oxygen out of the chamber to prevent the electrolyzers from overpressurizing, which can be a significant bottleneck for expanding your colony. Too much or too little gas of either hydrogen or oxygen can cause the chamber balance to be thrown off, causing the gases to be picked up by the wrong pumps. Gas mixture is also an issue on startup, as it will take at least a half a cycle or more for the hydrogen and oxygen to naturally separate to the point where it's not being picked up by the wrong pump. This can usually cause you to think that you've built the SPOM wrong, or that you've done something incorrectly and it's not working the way it should. This is usually not the case, and it will sort itself out by running it for a very short time. However, this mixture can be particularly frustrating if you're sending hydrogen into generators and the pump picks up oxygen, or if you send oxygen into atmosuit docks and you pick up hydrogen. This is going to cause those buildings to break. For this reason, it's usually useful to set up a secondary sorting mechanism for both delivery systems with either the gas shutoffs or gas filters, which I have a short on that you can watch. Balance issues will happen mainly from producing too much hydrogen that you don't use fast enough, and likewise with too much oxygen. This causes your pipes to become backed up and the gas is not being fully removed. So you may have to leave provisions in order to send extra hydrogen and extra oxygen in buffers throughout your map so you don't have this issue happen. The SPOM setup in this configuration with 4 electrolyzers can easily support up to 12 duplicants and maybe even more with enough tinkering, but large colonies will require you to build another SPOM or expand this design farther. The tinkering usually involves adjusting the atmo sensors throughout the SPOM so your gas pumps are working more often than not. Even with this amount of tinkering, the electrolyzers will never truly run at 100% capacity because the surrounding gases will eventually overpressurize them and they will end up struggling. The SPOM will also not serve your space missions very well unless you significantly expand your current setup or build another one entirely to supply your future hydrogen rockets with fuel and oxidizer. The Hydra has its electrolyzers overlapped by two different types of precise quantities of liquid that prevents the electrolyzers from overpressurizing, leading to a 100% uptime and utilizing its full potential. This means that just one electrolyzer in this configuration can support up to 8 duplicants, 2 electrolyzers can support 16 duplicants, and so on. Because this setup is so powerful, you can easily overbuild early on based on the projected number of duplicants that you think you're going to end up with, and simply turn off the extra electrolyzers that you don't need with signal switches until your colony grows. A well thought out Hydra can not only sustain your base, but also produce all of the hydrogen and oxygen that you need for your future hydrogen rockets and space missions. This setup has zero issues with sorting gases, and you'll never have to worry about storage becoming an issue, with pipes becoming full and being backed up thanks to the natural infinite storage of the Hydra. If you'd like to learn more about infinite storage, check out my video in the upper right hand corner. Because of this, locally cooling the oxygen is super easy and encouraged by simply running radiant liquid pipes fed from an aqua tuner through the oxygen chamber to be used within your base. You can also place wheezeworts here, especially if you have them planted by pips, so that they don't require any duplicant delivery from domestication. In addition, having wheezeworts with radiant liquid pipes as backup keeps your oxygen cold, but gives you the flexibility to turn additional cooling on automatically in case the wheezeworts can't keep up with the overall oxygen production. Overall, this chamber has a lot of flexibility, including an integrated liquid lock that you can use to service this chamber for things like future gas pump additions as your base grows. You can also find a video on my channel that focuses on building the Hydra, or different variations that I'll link in the top right corner. If you'd rather just copy this design, here is the power overlay, the liquid piping, the ventilation, the automation, metal overlay, gas overlay, and the temperature. The Hydra requires precise amounts of liquids to set up. You can't place too much liquid or you're going to flood your electrolyzers. The exact amount of liquid needs to be 35% of the default mass for the liquid of the type in that tile. This requires some wiki searching and some math, so if you just keep the amount of liquid at around 100 kilograms, you'd be fine for all of the liquids that you'd realistically end up using here. Solid and airflow tiles need to be strategically placed so your Hydra functions correctly, and a finished Hydra does not allow you to easily fix something that you may have misplaced, forgotten to install, such as piping, automation, or wiring. A Hydra also needs its respective storage chambers to be pre-charged with hydrogen and oxygen to create the natural separation that keeps it running for your entire game. This can be a nuisance if you don't have access to hydrogen before you turn on your electrolyzer. It also means that accidentally vacuuming out either chamber can cause you a world of problems. If you are short on water, the Hydra can also easily consume all of your stock in a blink of an eye and turn it into oxygen and hydrogen that you're not currently using, because there's no natural shutoff for it without the ability for it to become overpressurized, like if your pipes are backed up. I hope that this video clears up the differences on both designs and helps you choose the right one for your colony. The Hydra is the clear winner when it comes to being efficient, being easy to cool, and being easy to future-proof for an extremely large colony. On the other hand, building it comes with a lot of nuclear traps and complexities, but once it is set up and running, there is zero maintenance involved. The SPOM is very easy to set up early, and with a liquid lock, your duplicants can easily access the entire chamber if you need to fix or add something that you forgot. However, it's very inefficient compared to the Hydra, and your colony will surely outgrow it. You'll almost certainly need to expand or build another one to support future space missions. Despite its capabilities, I still encourage new players to build the SPOM. The design is just too easy to pass up, and it makes it perfect to help you get deep into the mid-game once you're ready to transition off of algae. Here are some additional tips that can apply to both the SPOM and the Hydra. First of all, you can easily get away with using gold for all of your builds here. At no point should the hydrogen or oxygen produced be above 125 degrees, so either build can be built very early on with beginner materials. The surrounding tiles should be made out of insulation, preferably igneous rock, as this is usually readily available, and igneous rock is the best material to use before having access to ceramic. Ceramic is only necessary if you're building it directly inside of your base, because heat will eventually leak out over hundreds of cycles, even from insulated tiles. The power requirements are usually trivial because either setup is power positive on its own. Adding an aqua tuner takes away a lot of that additional power, so if you can use wheezeworts to lessen the cooling load on the aqua tuner, then you'll be able to retain more of that power produced. In either situation, I like to connect my SPOM or my Hydra to the rest of my base when it comes to producing power. To me, I see no point into keeping the power exclusive to the SPOM because it helps to lessen the load overall on my electrical grid. The argument against this could be that if your entire electrical grid shuts down, then you will not have a functioning way to produce oxygen for a brief period of time. But if your SPOM or Hydra has already been running for plenty of cycles, you should already have your base pressurized enough that your duplicants have time to fix whatever is causing the problem for your electrical grid to go down. You can also add a power shutoff between your SPOM and your electrical power grid, so you can always separate the two if you have issues with it being connected to your entire base. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a rating and subscribe for more content. Also, let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on the SPOM and the Hydra, and if I missed anything that new players should know. Thank you to all the supporters of my channel and my live streams. If you'd like to chat about Ani, or if you'd like to see what I'm up to in my playthroughs, come hang out with me on stream here on YouTube or on Twitch. Until next time, I'm Ethan, and I'll see you guys in the next video.